We can now speak to Daniel Rubenstein from the Israeli Forces, a spokesperson unit and former advisor to the Prime Minister Netanyahu. Daniel, a pleasure to have you on the show. As mentioned at the top there, at least 86 people were killed across Gaza, and that was over the weekend. And I just wanted to ask you, the military today issued mass evacuation orders in northern Gaza. What exactly are you hoping to achieve with further strikes? And also, just how many more lives are expected to be lost in this campaign by Israel?
Thank you for having me. I think we're at a key turning point in this war. For almost 2 years, the Hamas terrorist army has been fighting this war in order to remain alive and in order to keep hostages so that it can carry out more massacres like it did on October the 7th. We're at a key point because Hamas is in a position to make a decision. Does it want this war to continue, or will it lay down its arms and release the hostages in exchange for safe passage out of Gaza? In the meanwhile, Hamas has given every indication that it wants to continue to fight. Israel does not want to have a single non-combatant casualty in Gaza, but unfortunately, Hamas continues to fight from densely populated areas in Gaza, and that makes fighting the Hamas terrorist army quite a slow and difficult task that must be done with great care. But unfortunately, Hamas has left us with no choice. Hamas is walking distance from the Israeli villages that it attacked on October 7th. It remains in control of significant areas of Gaza, and it's time for the whole world to speak with one voice and say that for the sake of Israelis and Palestinians alike, Hamas must lay down its weapons and let this war end.
Hamas has obviously said that they're not prepared to do that, but Israel is intensifying its bombardment of Gaza as the US president is really pushing for a ceasefire deal. Is Israel currently in ceasefire talks with Hamas and US mediators? What's the situation there?
I have seen reports that there are negotiations ongoing, whether they are in Cairo or whether they are in Doha, Qatar, where Hamas leaders are living quite comfortably. Negotiations are always taking place, whether behind the scenes or openly. And I'm hoping that these negotiations lead to an end to this war, which has gone on for more than 600 days. It has gone on for far too long. But the Hamas terrorist army remains the government of Gaza and is promising to continue to carry out more massacres of Israelis if it gets the opportunity. So that's why it's so important for the whole world, including the United States, including the European Union, including Qatar, including Egypt, to speak with one voice and say the way that this war ends is if Hamas stops fighting.
Various reports from Israeli strikes over the weekend say children and family were killed in a strike on Al-Mawasi, which is a so-called safe zone. Daniel, is Israel following international law and actually taking precautions to mitigate civilian harm? Are they trying to protect the civilians? Because there are various reports coming out from all different platforms, plus aid groups that are still in Gaza, that it's civilians taking the brunt of these attacks. Do you recognize that that is happening?
The answer to your first question is yes. Israel is following international humanitarian law in its war in Gaza, and that shows itself in a variety of ways. First is distinguishing between combatants and non-combatants. Israel wants to target Hamas fighters who are promising to carry out more massacres in Israel. These Hamas fighters are dressed exactly like the non-combatants. They have dug tunnels underneath residential areas. They have firing positions everywhere. It is a very difficult task, but Israel is committed to making every possible effort to distinguish between the Hamas fighters and the non-combatants. It also means that Israel is willing to send massive amounts of humanitarian aid into Gaza via the approved channels that do not reach the Hamas terrorist army, because it is this Hamas army that has been taking the international aid that generous donors have provided in the past. They control the distribution of this aid, they tax it, and they use this money to recruit new fighters, to fund the people who are holding hostages, and to prolong the war. So Israel is doing everything possible within international humanitarian law to fight this just war justly.
OK, let's pick up a little bit on that and the aid situation. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said the US-backed aid operation in Gaza is inherently unsafe, Daniel, saying it is killing people. This is strong words from the head of the UN. He says the United Nations says more than 400 people have been killed trying to seek aid from GHF operations. 11 today, according to reports. So he also said the search for food must never be a death sentence. Something appears to be going wrong here, and I don't know what it is, but daily reports, people are going to the GHF sites. They are being killed as they're receiving aid. I've spoken to many doctors inside of Gaza myself because foreign journalists aren't allowed in. And they've said to me, Leigh-Ann, these are not warning shots. People are being shot in the shoulders and the head as they are starving, just looking for any form of food. So is Israel really trying to help these people and get aid to them?
I share your concern. No one who comes to receive aid in Gaza from the designated points should be harmed, not from the Israeli side and not from the Palestinian side. It has been widely reported that Hamas is deeply unhappy with this effort to bypass Hamas's control of humanitarian aid in Gaza. Hamas has called for the death of people who are providing the aid and people who are going to collect it. I do not know the circumstances of every instance in which people are killed, but I very much hope that we can distinguish between the Hamas combatants, who should be nowhere near these aid distribution points, and non-combatant Palestinians who are coming to get food for their family. We want this war to end as quickly as possible. The fastest way to end it is to ensure that Hamas does not have the money to keep funding it. And the aid distribution program that the United Nations Secretary General is advocating for is, in effect, to send massive shipments of food and supplies into territory governed by Hamas so that Hamas can take it and use the money to fund its war. That is a non-starter. What the United States and Israel have done is unprecedented in urban combat. It is an attempt to separate the civilian non-combatant population from the Hamas fighters. And Hamas needs to allow people from within its territory to safely receive aid without threatening to kill people who are providing the aid.
OK, Daniel, I know that the UN, who I've spoken to, will completely disagree with that sentiment from you. They say they have all the connections. They know how to distribute aid. They've been doing it for years, and GHF is coming in as a military. But let's just park that for the moment, because I do hear you. I just want to ask you, before I let you go, what did you make of the chants, "Death to the IDF," from a band at Glastonbury Festival over the weekend?
I think the chants of death to the IDF are a symptom of a much wider problem, which is that it has become increasingly popular and acceptable to chant slogans that call for the elimination of Israel, whether it's "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," or it's "free Palestine," or now it's "death to the IDF." There is far too much anti-Israel, anti-Jewish hostility in popular culture. It is encouraging Hamas to prolong this war. Hamas hears these people in Western countries who are calling for death to Israel, death to Israeli soldiers. I think what we need is peace. We need peace for everyone, life for everyone in this region, Israeli and Palestinian, Muslim, Jewish, Christian. We can do much better than what we have been doing. We hope that this war will end soon and we can move on and build a better future for everyone in this region.
Daniel Rubenstein from the Israeli Forces Spokesperson Unit and former advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Always appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.